Their machines failed them, but a human's bare hands fixed the heart of their world. The first time Raelka saw the human kneeling in the scorched dust of the reactor chamber, she didn't understand. None of them did. The Zrillians had built their entire society around crystal cores, luminous, humming hearts that powered cities, purified water, held back the poisonous mists rolling from the southern crevasses. But when the main core began to crack, shuddering with each heartbeat of energy it emitted, every engineer and technician declared it lost. Their tools couldn't penetrate the core's shifting energy layers, and every attempt to replace it triggered violent tremors. The council had prepared to evacuate. Millions would die in the journey, and millions more would never make it to the barren plateau where they might build a temporary shelter. Then came the human, Marcus Thorne, a mechanic from a frontier freighter that happened to pass through Zrelius's orbit on a supply run. He wasn't even an official engineer by Zreli standards, just a man who fixed old metal husks drifting between stars. When Marcus offered to help, the council scoffed. Raelka remembered watching him step forward anyway, his bare hands carrying a small bag of metal scraps, wires, old screws, what he called his pocket miracles. She had stood at the edge of the chamber, trembling, watching as the core thrashed with internal lightning, threatening to split apart. Marcus climbed onto the trembling platform without so much as a protective exosuit. They warned him that the radiation pulses would kill him within seconds, that the core's heat would liquefy his bones. But he just laughed, that deep, unshakable laugh that echoed against the crystalline walls. Raelka pressed her fingers against the viewing glass, unable to look away as he laid his hands on the core. His skin blistered instantly. Smoke curled up his arms. Still, he pressed in closer, whispering words none of them understood. Instead of recoiling, the core seemed to listen. The surging pulses began to slow. The cracks stopped expanding. Marcus reached into his bag, pulling out lengths of copper wire, tiny metal pins, fragments of old human circuit boards. He twisted them together, weaving them as though he were braiding hair. No protective field, no hyper-calibrated wrenches, no auto-drones. Just his fingers, raw, bloody, stubbornly moving. For hours he worked, ignoring the blood dripping onto the floor, ignoring the gaping council members behind the glass. The core glowed more softly, its lightning settling into a steady heartbeat. When Marcus finally stepped back, his arms were scorched black up to his shoulders, and his breathing was ragged. Raelka could feel the pulse of the stabilized core humming through the floor. Alive again, the city's heartbeat returning. She rushed into the chamber before the medics, falling to her knees beside him. His eyes fluttered open, and he looked at her with that same infuriating, gentle smile. "Told you, she just needed a bit of warmth," he whispered, before collapsing forward. The medics dragged him away, hooking up intravenous fluids, pressing sealant foam over his burns, muttering about cellular regeneration units. Raelka refused to leave his side. She watched his chest rise and fall, each shallow breath a tiny miracle of its own. Outside, the city lights flickered back to life. The purification towers spun up again. The mists retreated, the people stepping out of their shelters with tears streaming down their faces. The council gathered, humbled, realizing they had nearly condemned their world because they couldn't imagine a solution beyond their sterile precision. In the days that followed, word spread that the human had saved the core with only scraps and his own hands. Children began placing metal screws and bits of wire at the city shrine in his honor. Families who once distrusted humans now carved his likeness into the crystal spires, hoping to remember the warmth he had brought with his simple, stubborn faith. Raelka stayed by his bed, cleaning his bandages, feeding him slow spoonfuls of broth when he could swallow again. She had been trained as a technician, taught to rely on equations, thermal models, high-frequency diagnostics. But watching him taught her something deeper, that machines are only as alive as the hands that love them. On the third day, Marcus woke fully. He saw Raelka dozing at his side and reached a trembling hand to brush her cheek. She startled, eyes wide, then burst into laughter and tears all at once. "We thought you wouldn't wake," she sobbed, pressing his hand to her face. "You didn't really think a core was going to take me out, did you?" he croaked, his smile breaking the crusted lines of pain around his lips. She didn't answer, just clung to him tighter. Outside the window, the city glimmered under the first clear sunrise in years. The core's new rhythm pulsed through every building, every street, every heart. The Zrelians gathered below his recovery tower, holding up banners in their shimmering blue script, banners that simply said, "Thank you, human." Raelka knew then that everything had changed. Not just the core, not just the city, but their understanding of humans, of warmth, of sacrifice, of raw, unrefined courage. She had grown up reciting warnings about humans, too reckless, too fragile, too impulsive. But now she knew the truth. Marcus had shown them that life was not about perfect symmetry or flawless calculations. It was about putting your hands where no one else dared, feeling the heartbeat of a machine as if it were a living creature, and giving yourself to save it. When Marcus finally stood, leaning heavily on Railka, the council fell silent before him. He looked at them, then at Railka, and finally at the sea of people beyond. "Take care of her," he said, gesturing toward the distant core tower, now shining like a second sun. "She doesn't just need maintenance. She needs love." Those words spread across the entire planet like wildfire. They etched them onto monuments, taught them in schools, whispered them during prayer. Marcus eventually left, though Railka went with him. She couldn't let go of the man who had shown her the true soul of machines and the unbreakable will of a human heart. Together they traveled the stars, answering distress signals, breathing life into dying engines, reminding every world they touched that even the most advanced machine is just a heart waiting for a human's touch. The Zrillians thrived, forever changed by the day their machines failed, and a human's bare hands fixed the heart of their world.